Jay Massey is a full-time real estate investor. He's an entrepreneur.
He also teaches people how to find deals, raise capital for real estate investments.
Meeting Jay Massey in person, you'd think he's just a regular guy. He's got jeans and a t-shirt on and a pair of sneakers. But he's built up a multi-million-dollar empire.
I hope you do have an empty notebook that's going home filled.
Jay gives back so much value that I've never seen.
Now, at this moment, when I'm looking at the kitchen, things are going through my head.
You want to be friends with him, and he treats you like you're the only person in the room, even though it's for the benefit of everybody.
This is how, when you ask yourself, how does Jay do it? This is how.
He tells people that they have to take action, and they have to take action now. I took the action, and the results have paid off.
What happens when the marketplace understands who we are and how we go out there? Howdy, people. How are you doing? Hopefully things are going well. And for those of you who have been here before, welcome, or at least welcome back. And for those of you who are brand new, catching us live, maybe even for the first time, do us a favor, go ahead and write a new in the chat, because I would love to welcome you. And again, that's just NEW, new, in the chat. Now, if you don't know, what we tend to go through on days like today is we tend to give updates on the short-term rental / hospitality industry, or anything related to it, because we want you guys to know exactly not only what's going on, but how to leverage the information to your own benefit. Because it's one thing to know about an industry, it's another to know that an opportunity is in front of you, and it's completely different to be able to interpret the information in such a way to be able to take advantage of it. So hopefully you are in a place that is much cooler than where I am, because today we have discovered that our air conditioner is not working like it should. And yeah, that's kind of just how it goes from time to time. So if this is your first time here, again, go ahead and type new in the chat. And with that, my name is Jay. CEO of Cashflow Diary. What we do is we help you become an entrepreneur. We help you build assets so that you can learn to create cash flow and specifically create generational change. Now, that sounds crazy, right? But yet, that's what can happen when you learn to separate your income from time and learn to build systems that have the capacity to provide value to lots of individuals in the marketplace simultaneously. And in this case, we leverage real estate to do that, specifically short-term rentals. And for those of you who have been with us for any length of time, you know, if anything, we love to give you lots of information. So feel free to catch up with us at cashflowdiary.com, listening to the podcast and or joining our complimentary community, which is also available. And for those of you who have questions as it relates to business, to real estate, investing, etc., the economy, I don't really care, all of those things, just go ahead and type those in the chat, because then I can get those answered. Because that's basically where it goes. So let me see what is so Donald Henderson is saying hello Donald, welcome back in your case, because I do remember the name, so I know that you've been here before. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. And then we have Karen, looks like McIntyre. That name doesn't sound, it just doesn't ring a bell, but I appreciate you here, and thank you as well for being here today. And then we already have a question, so I like it. How can I watch without the app? I'm very interested in gaining as much knowledge as possible. I'm not quite sure how to answer that question, because at this particular moment, how you are watching would be a way to watch without the app, because the only app I could think that you are referring to is, again, the app that we have for our students and community. So at this moment, we're not live inside the app. We're actually live on Facebook and many other social platforms, which maybe they have their own app or what have you, but you should be able to watch without an app, especially right now. So that you understand. Nonetheless, Melissa, thank you for being here. Glad that you are here, and we will do our best to not, and I'm going to say one thing, and again, many who know me know already what I'm about to say. I too am interested in you gaining knowledge, but I am more interested in applying the knowledge, and then I am most interested in you teaching the knowledge that you have applied to someone else. So gaining it, that's the easy part. There's lots of that available, yet we want you to use it so that you benefit. And we'll be going through some of those things today as we go through we have basically two reports. So as we're going through today, we're going to be able to give you some updates around the reports that have been recently produced in the industry, so that you can have an understanding of what's going on in the short-term rental / hospitality world, and most importantly, how to interpret some of this information to see where the opportunities lie. And as we have done always for years, nearly a decade, can you believe it? Anyway, as we have done for a long time, we will show you how to leverage this information to your benefit, specifically the stuff that you may have perceived or still perceive as negative or down, and more importantly, how that gives you information on where to start your short-term rental, why they're still working. And I'm particularly excited about one piece of information, because for those of you who were around in March and April, when everything felt like it was crumbling and falling apart, and indeed was, there were some statements that I made then that were hypotheses. I don't know if that's the right word. Whatever. You college grads, you can correct it later. Let me know. And now we have data from third parties that have backed up those very statements. So I'm pretty encouraged to share that part, obviously, as we continue. All right, so let's get into this. Let's see what it is that there is to gain. So very specifically, where'd it go? Yes, got it. As we are going to do today and have done in the past, we are going to be looking at Skift has produces some of their research reports, and we're going to specifically take down two of their reports. So now, to be very, very clear, some of you, if you're like me, you want to dig apart the report. You want to understand the method or methodology. That was for a particular person, and he knows who he is. Anyway, that you want to understand the methodology that they use to collect the information and looking for the statistical relevance and anomalies. And we're not getting into that today at all. All right. However, I'm letting you know where I'm getting it from so that it's easy for you to go back and do those things. Now, I will say, as I've said before, it's not like they're sponsored or anything, but they do produce research reports that they have some free. Not all of it is. Some of the best stuff isn't, because that's just their economic model. But the information is used by individuals like your Airbnb, Radisson, Booking, Hilton. And these are probably, if I click here, probably a number of names that each of us recognize for our own various reasons. My point is, it's a reliable source of information. Now, if I was one of these brands, I'd be interpreting this information completely differently, because you and I are not necessarily one of these brands. We're going to interpret the information in a way that benefits us, because we'll be able to look at the same information and know not only what does it mean, but what to do about it. Because that is one of my favorite reasons of watching the news. If I am watching the news, if I'm looking at a newspaper, if I'm trying to understand what could be going on in the world, it's because every country I've ever traveled to, been in, every time I've ever had the privilege of doing a presentation, anytime someone tells me I can't find a lead, and there's nothing like that out here, regardless of language, I tell them to go get the newspaper, get the front page of the newspaper, because inside, and invariably, and if not the front page, but within a couple of pages, I will find an opportunity for that they can do. And now it's just about following up and following through on that particular opportunity. So we're going to do a little bit of that together today. And if you've got some additional questions, thoughts, comments, complaints, quirks, quandaries, wondering how can you get your own business started, by all means, of course, put that in the comments. And here we go. So as we would have it, the recovery index is not exactly giving us any news that we don't necessarily already know. But more importantly, it's not telling us anything is worse. For those of you unfamiliar with the recovery index, it's basically a measurement of year over year. Where are we relative with the base year being 2019? What is this saying? It's saying that at the beginning of the year, we were headed in the directions that we're typically always headed. And then we fell off a cliff. That cliff was known as travel restrictions, bans, COVID, all the things that have occurred. Now, as we've continued, it has gotten better. Okay. So it's improved. It's not as bad as it was, but that doesn't mean we're back to where we were. Right. And what that typically translates to is that maybe today you are experiencing occupancy that is similar to what you're used to. However, what people are paying per day is likely significantly depressed, assuming you have not made any of the changes that we have recommended in the past. So if that's the case, then this 43 number probably feels very, very true for you in a lot of cases. Okay. Next, as always, we have the health score. This is the health score is basically a measure or metric, if you will, that Skift has developed that gives their outlook based upon things like, hey, do we think this company will survive? Based upon everything that we know about them, etc. So I tend to reference this not to put any one particular company on blast or anything, but to show you, or at least give you a way to, if you were kind of curious yourself, hey, I wonder if this airline is going to make it, if this hotel chain is going to make it, if you get the idea. Now, it doesn't cover the small mom and pops. Those are generally the ones that are in the most amount of challenges and trouble, mostly because their access to capital is not the same as some of the brands that you see or might see in a report like this. So because of that, just understand Some of this is primarily focused on those, not necessarily your hotel down the street or around the corner that you may be familiar with. So now let's get into one of my favorite reports to go through is in this case, the travel tracker, I like this report for a number of reasons. Is one of them simply because it can give us some ideas of what America or travelers or people are thinking who are indeed our customers that are short-term rental guests, people who are seeking accommodation in some way, shape, or form. Also, we'll be able to interpret a few things. Now, as much as I would love to read this to you, that ain't gonna happen. And because of that, what we're going to do is I'm going to skim through some of the things. But here you can see some of the things that are in this report. We've got your travel incidences, meaning the reasons for travel from January till now, or at least August travel highlights, the impact of travel, and being able to, because you guys know how much I like tracking the customer. How do they feel? What do they think? What are they intending on doing? So we definitely will spend and invest some time there because there's things to be said and or had and or learned. Now, when we're looking here at the highlights of August travel, basically it's saying, hey, nothing changed. Ultimately, yay, it's all the same. It didn't really get better, but at least it didn't get worse. And I say that because of 0.9% difference. And that worse. Now, remember, though, you take this into context. In context, there were spiking numbers, and in many places, the numbers are still spiking. So we kind of guess what we expect to possibly see for September because individuals are not traveling in that sense. We would have normally, so for those of you wondering, in a normal sense, we would have seen a flipping of this curve as opposed to being this U shape or bowl shape. We would have seen more of a mountain because more people would have been traveling, especially during these summer months. Effectively, for those of you who have already been in the industry, here's what that means. It means you have and will survive the equivalent of 3 consecutive slow seasons. Because remember, this came, for most of us, came right out. We were coming out of the slow season, looking forward to the high, but we didn't experience that. So we just experienced that. And then we were gifted another slow season. And we are recovering into a slow season. So you are working through 3 consecutive slow seasons. That's basically what is going on here. So for those of you who have who were in the industry prior, you understand that already, and that's great. And for those of you just getting in, what that means is it's created lots of opportunity because there's been lots of vacancy in the market, meaning people have left. Operators who decided to go because, well, honestly, they didn't grow personally and to understand what it is that they needed to do to keep being able to serve individuals. This is probably one of those, well, not probably, this is one of the charts that has the worst news, in my opinion, and it may not be obvious, but what I'm referring to when I say the worst news is very specifically over here on the end. It's this business convention conference trade show stuff. It is not moving. It's just not moving. And it's also to be expected because that is what we need to move. We need that number to move for the significant volume to return because there was a significant amount of business, convention, conference, trade show, etc. That happens that creates travel. And as you can see, as you all know, it's not happening like it normally would. Now, that in a lot of cases, that doesn't mean that the convention trade show didn't happen. It means it went virtual, so nobody had to travel. This is a potentially troubling indicator for those who are like more 100% dependent on business travel. Now, with that being said, read in between that line. There are certain airlines who have a greater exposure to this market, aka business travel, than others, which is another way of saying If I'm near an airline that has that exposure, are they likely to have some financial trouble, aka need to lay off people? What's going to happen to that airport that is connected and subsidized and that they stay in? That will have an effect on that local area and the economy, despite the amount or if any potential stimulus money comes that particular direction. Okay, so this is not any news. I don't think this is news. This is not something every one of us haven't already heard at least once somewhere that, yo, guess what? The airlines are still in trouble. Yep, that is true. That's basically confirming what we already know. It hasn't improved too much, if at all. And yeah. So we know that that's a thing. And as was stated back in March and April, the first type of travel to return is leisure travel, which it did. And the challenge is now we're on the other side. So what would normally pick up where they left off is a question mark is what we have today. So we don't know what we don't know about what we don't know. And we'll see how that continues, but it's definitely something to continue to stay focused on. This also should not be a surprise because we talked about locations, like because many of you were wondering if I'm going to start today, where should I start? And the idea was not only are people not going to fly, it doesn't mean they're not going to travel, but it does mean when they do travel, they're going to travel within a certain radius, aka 100 miles. And most importantly, what they're going to travel to is, I called it the Rediscover America plan, because that's what was going to happen. And that's exactly what's happened. People have rediscovered America in various forms of travel. Some of it, a lot of it being RV. But at the end of the day, they're on the roads. They're traveling in various forms. That, again, hasn't changed. Now, this is where we get to crazy stuff that I have said that I'm excited about, that I want you to pay attention to, that gets me all kinds of excited, so that when you ask me, hey, is it too late? My answer is no. Does this make sense now? My answer is absolutely. Here is why. Why? Just read the title. It's right there. Main accommodation types for personal travel, January through August. Does anyone see a very interesting type of travel that is experiencing a consistent, okay, look at all of the different types of accommodation here, all of them, okay? There's really only one that has demonstrated a pattern of increase that is being sustained. There's only one type, as in one, as in singular, as in what you and I do. So the next time you're wondering, hey, is Airbnb going to make it? Who cares? And they are, but who cares? Because you don't have an Airbnb business anyway, nor do you have a vacation rental business. You guys know that it is bigger than that. It has always been bigger than that. And now we have reports that are only confirming what we already knew. And no, please understand one thing though. These numbers, the increase, the difference, you're like, yeah, but this really big bar over here, totally understood. They're still going to get theirs. What I want to give you in context, however, is an understanding that a increase of, okay, and so let's be clear, pre-COVID, we had a lack of supply in the short-term rental world. Because of COVID, a lot of supply has left the market. Because of COVID, demand and preference for what we do has increased and will continue. Consumer habits are changing. This bodes well, not only today, but into the future. Okay. While, yes, I want it over tomorrow, just like you, or yesterday. Whether you believe it to be over, whether you choose to take it seriously or not, whether you choose to wear a mask or not, whether you think people are crazy for wearing them is 100% irrelevant, because your customer believes it's relevant. Therefore, you will respond to your customer or go out of business, your choice. And because your customer has a preference, you should serve them, understand them. They are voting with their dollars and telling you what is so. Because the pie is so huge to begin with, a 1% change is more than enough for every one of you who are watching, listening, either live on a replay, typing in the comments, turning it off right now. Doesn't matter. That is huge because we're looking at a 50% increase month over month. That's crazy and exciting. And that's code for my famous phrase, everyone. Like, I already know what you're going to say, Jay. You're going to tell me to get more units. Yes, you darn Skippy. Because now, on top of everything else, the customer is saying, yeah, I would prefer to stay that way. Now, in the other report, I'm going to show you why they're saying that. Like, they literally are saying why they're choosing to stay in the short-term rentals, which again, it makes perfect sense. This is also good news, by the way, this particular slide, because what it is saying and telling us is that people, yes, the cancellations, reschedules, they're happening, but they're going down. Yay, that's good. So maybe we'll get back to a normal situation in terms of cancellations. We're still well above what would be considered normal. And okay, but at least, less people are postponing their travel, meaning they're going. Less people are rescheduling, which is very helpful for all of our calendars and revenue management. There are less people who are canceling. Yay, not a whole lot from a percentage standpoint, and you should be seeing less cancellations of future far out travel as well. Yay, this is good. However, the economic perception, the perception of things is kind of teetering on the yay, it's a little bit better. I think that's kind of how I would put it. We'll see what happens in the coming months to be able to actually determine ultimately what's so. So we'll see. Because the consumer outlook for their own personal finances has not yet, keywords, has not yet improved to the levels to where people necessarily feel safe spending all of the money and doing all of the things that they would like to do. So we shall see, because as you can see here, people are yet keywords to want to increase their travel spending in any sort of significant way. So we'll see how that goes at the end of the day. Okay. What I want to do is remind everybody, feel free to type any particular questions that you have, because I'm getting ready to switch to the other report. Now, this other report, I'm actually kind of excited about, because I didn't believe that I should have known that a report like this would come up, because it's part of what's necessary. But it speaks to what we all hear and talk about, is that when a crisis occurs, you change, you adapt. That's what we do. You adapt. You figure out a new way to operate with new conditions. And that's exactly what our industry is doing, is adapting. Now, the speed and rate at which adaptation must occur, that is probably faster than normal. So that's actually a good thing in this case, because innovation comes to the table to save the day for all intents and purposes. So what are we going to be taking a quick nosedive into is contactless tech. Now, what I do find interesting is that in a pre-COVID world, if I said contactless tech, very few people, especially those outside of the payments industry, would even know what's that? What is he talking about? Like, if you had used the words contactless entry or contact, you know what I'm saying? Just think about that. This now word contactless has way more economic value than it used to. See, before you would lead with pool, but now it's contactless, because that's the word that's valuable. And as always, as humans do, we recognize opportunity. Where there's chaos, there's cash flow. Write that down. And When we discover this chaos, it's relative to the size of the problem. The bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck, and more importantly, the more good quality of life you can extend by solving it, which gets exciting. And that's exactly what is happening here, is that the industry is coming together to solve the problem. The problem being, hey, I don't want to go to your hotel and touch your elevator button. I don't want to touch the front door. I don't want to. How can I do what I normally do or used to do in a pre-COVID world and yet stay safer? What can I do about it? So the contactless innovation is on the rise in various different parts of the world and industry. So what does that mean? Inside the report, very specifically, they've got information around the need for more contactless tech, because see, you don't realize how important your hands have been until you're like, I don't know if I want to use my hand for that. You're like, I don't want to touch it. Just ask yourself, when's the last time, just, today being, was it the end of September, 2020, when's the last time you shook someone's hand? Anybody remember? Do you remember? Now, for the majority of you, it's like, I don't remember when that was. Yeah, it's because habits have changed. And the need for more contactless tech, because before there wasn't a need. The need is now here, and real, right? The main types of contactless tech, their advantages, where contactless tech sits in the larger hotel stack, and which technologies will stick is what, according to the report, and what the tech vendor landscape might actually look like. And most importantly, the 50 vendors that are bringing the contactless tech innovation to the hotel industry. It's, you're like, wait, there's 50 of them? Of course there's 50 of them. Why wouldn't there be? There's an opportunity on the table. Entrepreneurs know this. That's not new. You're going to stay you're going to stay in accommodation of some kind in the future. You're going to get on a flight in some way in the future. You're going to get on a cruise ship some way in the future. And how do you adapt to that? It's not going away, and nor is the getting back to normal happening. There is going to be a new version of what is considered normal and acceptable. Yes, all day long. So what part of the summary and or problem, if you will, that the contactless world is tackling is in the world of payments. Now, this is likely very clear to most of us. I mean, by now, many of you got used to using Apple Pay in ways that you never even thought of before. Like you were like, yeah, I'll get around to it. It was no big deal. But now it's like, you are leading the conversation. Can I pay with Apple Pay? Samsung Pay? Can I pay with something of that nature? Google Pay, WeChat Pay, PayPal, something. I need a way to pay that does not require a cash exchange or touching in any way, shape, or form. And a lot of that has been a pull forward and accelerated. Woo, Lord Jesus. Don't put your liquids near the computer stuff. One moment. Woo, Jasleen. Can you bring me a towel, please? Because I straight up just spilled a whole bunch of stuff on my desk. That's pretty awesome. And yes, if you were wondering, I am still live. So it's more fun that way. Hurry up, though. Okay, where was I? Thank you. So guest engagement tools. That was the other piece. What is it? Oh my gosh. And what's funny about this one, when we're talking about guest engagement tools, oh my God, well, that's ruined. Is simply the fact that this particular category is something that we were doing pre-COVID anyway, and is just part of our standard way of scaling the business. When I first was getting into the short-term rental world, one of the major limitations that I observed from existing operators was an inability to communicate effectively through in volume and at scale. So things like that would be the limiting factor upon their ability to scale or have more than one unit. So, or what does that mean? It wasn't just, can I talk to people? It was, okay, if I need something, not only can I talk to people, but does the maintenance staff then get notified in some way, shape, or form? And then is the project actually tracked through a system that if when the customer wants an update, that the customer experience team can then look at and go, okay, cool, here's what's happening. The guy is on the way, or, here's where we are with sending you the extra rolls of toilet paper or the towel, all of those things. Does anything talk to each other at all? And figuring that out, and more specifically, how can you have your own internal team not have to touch and or talk to each other, right? So being able to make that happen in a scaled, distributed environment is, and I'm kind of excited because that means, hey, if the entire industry and 50 vendors are beginning to attack this, that just means what we have cobbled together and put together as a tech stack just gets better. That's code for, hey, it's going to get easier to do what we do, meaning any one individual will be able to produce more revenue. Any one business will be able to handle more locations effectively, which I'm excited about. So then we also have this, the checking in and departure, arrivals and departure. How can you make sure that your key fobs come back and all of those other things? I find it interesting that now is when the high levels of adoption occur, when, again, this was also something we were doing in the pre-COVID environment. And keyless entry was just a staple. It was never even on the table. We had to, from the beginning. So all of these things are an advantage that short-term rental operators have had, at least maybe you weren't using them, but we've had for a while. And now others are following suit. This is great. That will change the experience at a hotel or traditional accommodation, traditional accommodator. Yes. So the experience will change, but there's a caution, around how much does it change? How does it change? And that, which is also an opportunity for you and I. So we want to just understand that, because part of what happens here is as you go contactless, you need less and less in terms of the number of individuals to be able to execute any one particular reservation, which again is what the report continues to talk about in terms of how certain companies like Amazon sees growth and how online shopping, specifically groceries, through the roof, crazy stuff has begun to happen for that very reason. Now, I told you I was going to tell you the reason why, the reason why customers are starting to prefer a short-term rental experience, which is also AKA the reason why the business still works and why the business will continue to work, and why you may, depending on the changes you've made, if you've pivoted properly or not, you actually may be experiencing more revenue than less right now, even though the industry is at that level of 43. This particular chart says it all. It's very clear. The main reason for planning to use a particular accommodation type. Let me make this a little bit bigger. What is the main reason? Is it, I believe, they have higher cleaning standards. Let's look at that. When I'm looking across a branded hotel, an all-inclusive resort, boutique, bed and breakfast, vacation, do I believe? Do they believe that we have higher cleaning standards? No, they don't believe that. They really don't. Okay, I have more trust in them handling safety concerns. Okay, so again, let's look at it. So they really don't trust the branded hotel to keep them safe, but it's pretty much even across the board. Okay, split between the others, with the exception of a bed and breakfast. It's these other two that are telling. I can have better control over the environment. Yep, you sure can. 100%. I believe it's easier to socially distance. You know what? You're also right, because we don't have a hotel lobby that you have to walk through, no elevator that you, have to stand on and sit next to someone. We don't have those things. Those are just non-existent. It's the people you came with, right? From a contact tracing standpoint, definitely easier, should that become necessary. And it is these two things that will continue to drive the preference. You saw the 50% increase on inside the other report. You're seeing the answer to why the 50% increase. And even if a vaccine or somebody declares COVID's over tomorrow, the change has already occurred. It is a psychological, mental, emotional, physical, medical change. Consumer habits, preferences have changed. You don't have to agree because they are voting with their wallet. And it's just that clear. And because they're voting with their wallet, what they say kind of goes if you're going to be in this particular business or in any business for that matter. And their vote says, this is what we demand. This is what we want. We will not stay at your location. We will stay less and less at your location unless you begin to make changes like these. Because if you don't make changes like these, here's what happens. You now have to sell them on why having less control of their environment is still going to be safe and or good, and why having making it more challenging to socially distance is still going to be safe. That is, by the way, is the one thing I think that cruise ships are going to have to address. How on earth am I going to socially distance? Because they have an occupancy minimum that they have to hit to even set sail. So this should be interesting to watch. But understanding why someone, know why they buy, know why they don't buy, understanding why your customer will or won't do a thing is like the gold. Now, that's the obvious answer here. Let's also look at this same report, flip it, and look at the other two, because I believe they have higher cleaning standards and I have more trust in them handling safety concerns. Now, for those of you who have taken advantage of the systems and the techniques and the things that we teach, you already know, you're like, oh my God, I can answer those two things. I know how to show them that we have higher cleaning standards and actually have handled their safety concerns. So for those of you who have pivoted properly, now you know why you likely are earning more revenue than less, especially now, is because you are speaking to the things they believe you to be weak at, and you're already strong at the things they believe you to be strong at. And therefore they go, well, I'll just stay here. And then you end up in a situation like, hey, they stayed and they're all making 4-month reservations. And Jay, I don't have any more vacancy. What should I do? You already know the answer. Someone type it in the chat. I mean, you know what I'm going to say. Yes, that's right. Get more units. It all points to that over and over again. It all points to that. And because consumer preferences and habits have changed, it doesn't like go back, right? It doesn't go back. Will there be some retraction? Sure, but it won't go back to quote unquote the way things were, right? You, for those of you in the industry or thinking about getting in the industry, now is the time to go build your market share. That's ultimately when you combine both of these reports, what they are saying. That's how I see it. That's how I interpret it. Remember, we are interpreting it based upon us being a short-term rental operator. If I am a hotelier, I am looking at this report and probably not as encouraged, because it's like, boys, ladies, gentlemen, we have a problem and we got to fix this. How do we fix this? And part of the answer is also saying, how can we be more like the short-term rental people? What can we do to adjust to this customer preference we are watching happen before our eyes? And how can we do so when we're closed? And for the most part, how do we gain market share when we're not advertising the way that we used to? How do we do all of these things with these constraints? And to top it all off, we don't know when we'll be able to open again. To say that the industry is in chaos still and in need of lots of help and rescue and all kinds of things is an understatement. Pricing was already hard. Now it's darn near impossible because historical numbers don't matter anymore because you can't rely on it, because you have to rely on what's happened before. Well, for most operators today, myself included, this is my first pandemic. How about you? And if so, you don't know. You remember what those first 12 months were like when you opened up the first unit. You just didn't know. You anticipated, you hoped, you did the best you could with what you knew at the time, and you used that time to gather data so that you could perfect and improve and increase rates and reduce expenses and meet your customers' needs better and better and better. Well, guess what? It's time to do it all over again. Yay. That's really what's happening. And not only is it time to do it all over again, it's time to do it all over again while increasing more inventory that you control, because the customer's coming. They're here. They're looking for it. I don't know if you've thought about this yet, but let me just give you this one little seed. I just want you to sit with it. The way how real estate is being used has fundamentally changed. In one of the last pandemics that happened specifically in the United States, it changed how New York real estate was constructed. They started their construction process differently as a response to the Spanish flu. That will happen and has already begun to happen again. How real estate is being used, it's already changed. Inside that change is an opportunity. Understanding that change is where your customer is counting on you and I to figure it out, just to somehow know, to be honest, that that's what they're looking for. And your job is to go tell them that you have it. With that being said, I'm going to go through and look in the chat for any particular comments or questions that you guys might have. If I don't see any, we'll be done. If not, we'll see. But for those of you who have been here before, hopefully this has been helpful so far. But let me keep going and seeing what you guys have to say about this. If it wasn't clear, yes, I'm excited about the information for all of the obvious reasons, right? But in case that wasn't clear, so that it didn't need to be said. Now, am I excited why the information is what it is? No, not necessarily. I don't like the cause, but I can do nothing about that. However, I can respond and be there to assist in solving the problem. The problem being providing clean, safe, affordable housing, and the problem being teaching others to do the same so that they can develop cash flow, so that the next time there's a shock to their reality, to their income, to how life works, there's more cushion to help absorb the impact. All right, so let's see what we've got. We've got John talking about systems and assets. We all know how well, how much, how excited I get for those things. Renette is talking about pets, what to know when being pet friendly. Good Lord. So the biggest thing that I know that we have learned from a pet friendly standpoint is to understand that the pet is not the problem. It's the human, because not every human treats and does what you think they should do. And a pet's just being a pet. An animal's just being an animal. It's the human that becomes the challenge. So learning to work with the human who enjoys and loves their pet is everything. So chief among them, you need them to be truthful and integrous. That is the challenge. Oh, I didn't bring a pet, or I didn't bring a pet. I don't have a dog. Oh, this dog is a service animal now. Yeah, that is the smallest service animal I have ever seen. And I don't even know where you found a harness for it, but it is what it is. So it's mostly understanding that there's a lot of people who will take the opportunity to impersonate literally a service animal. Many of them don't know the damage that they do, not only to the legitimate of those who need the services of a service animal, but they don't even realize in a lot of cases they're committing a misdemeanor, and in some states it's actually a felony. But that's a whole nother story for another day. But if you can clean that up, most of the rest is pretty self-explanatory and easy to deal with. But you tend to address those things on the front end because you want to address that with your designer before you go in, to make sure that the design choices in terms of upholstery and furniture and what you're going to do, that those are made beforehand, because it'll make it easier for your cleaners on the back end, because you don't want them to hate you, especially not now. Missed you, Jay. I'm back in civilization. Not quite sure who this is, and I'm glad you're back either way. Karen, how do you determine how much of a deposit you should listing if there's damage or before? Karen, you are not going to like my response at all. In a perfect world, you will list 0 deposit. I know every accountant just freaked out, property manager, blah, 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 blah. And I don't care, because I am not concerned about deposits. I'm concerned about revenue. A deposit is not revenue. It's a liability on your books. And what you should be concerned about, and what you are concerned about, is I get it. You are under the belief, the philosophy that a deposit is somehow a deterrent to actually causing damage. I can tell you unequivocally too many studies as well, whereas a deposit sometimes will give someone the belief that it's, oh, well, I've already paid the deposit, it's okay, I might as well go ahead and do the thing that I didn't want to do. There was one study, in fact, where I thought that this illustrated the point. A particular a daycare operator, which it sounds like it's not related, trust me, a daycare operator, all they had was a policy of not picking up your children late. And there was, at that time, there was no fee. And there was a sense of shame, if you will, for picking up your child late. So because of that sense of shame, they still had some parents who did pick up their kids late. And to address this issue, they said, okay, cool, we'll start instituting a fee for picking up your kids late. And in true human fashion, the number of late pickups increased because people just said, I'll pay the fee. So deposits are not the way to do it. The way to make it work is to have what are known as a damage fee waiver. A damage fee waiver can be written and become income. What does that mean? So instead of trying to care about a deposit, I care more about damage fee waivers. I would rather charge every guest another 75, 95, 105, depending on the size of the property and what I have, some number. Because if I'm doing my job right on the front end, the amount of claims that we have are going to be significantly reduced. Therefore, I would rather collect the income just a tiny bit from more people and keep it than to have to concern myself not only with keeping that liability on the books, but now I've got to concern myself with how exactly do I affect the deposit? Because there are rules against when you can take it, how long you can hold it, what you must do with it when it's in your care and custody, and then when you have to return it by. All of those are processes that you have to handle internally, which we don't find to be economically worth it. By charging a damage fee waiver, on the other hand, you know what happens? Is we get to make additional income. We get to limit our loss. We get to build a sinking fund so that when, because something will eventually happen, but when something happens, we have a bucket of money, if you will, to pull from so that, hey, if it's time to go replace a lamp, we can go replace a lamp or a couch or whatever need be. And hey, if nothing happens, if we do really, really good, then now we can either talk about improvements or who knows what. And for those of you who are owning your short-term rentals, hopefully you heard in between all of the lines that I just said, because that is also your answer to all of your deferred maintenance. All right, let's keep going. Oh, you typed that twice. Got it. True. Never thought I would not want cash, right? I have some in my wallet that I still don't want to touch. Yes, it took Yes. Isn't that funny? It's like you are actually asking people if you're going, do you take cash or what do you do? Do we scan? How does this work? Because I don't know anymore. Because you don't know anymore. And because most people have switched and they're in the process of switching because they're like, yeah, no cash. We don't want that stuff because it got germs on it. Like it took COVID for us to realize how dirty money was. It's always been that way. But now we really don't want it. I think it's crazy. Hello there. I have a 6-bed house on the outskirts of a business city. 6-bed. Got it. To target contractors. Do I think this works? I think there's a way to make it work. I don't know that you have chosen the again. I remember you're the guy in the UK and you can't lead with the property. You must lead with who it is that you are looking to serve. Many of the contractors, especially from a construction standpoint that we have worked, the only time we've ever been able to house a group of them has usually been an engineering firm. So if that's what you mean by contractor, then I would look there, like an engineering or architectural firm that may work. If you're talking about your labor in the sense of like your carpenters and steel workers and things of that nature, I don't know, my friend, I don't know. However, I would want to talk to the foreman or the owner of the construction crew or the GC, if you can, general contractor, the one who's over the head. I think you guys use the exact same term for this person. My point is, they may be able to help you keep it full, but they'll be rotating out a number of contractors or people who are actually subcontractors, technically, in this case, working on a particular project. So I would not go, I'm going to get this house and target this house to these people and expect that to work. I would always start with, this is the person, here's what they prefer. Exactly like I did when I went through the report. Here are the people, this is what they prefer. Let's give them what they prefer. Not, I may want to own a 6-bedroom house and it may feel good, but yeah, no, you don't, that's not how that works. That's just not how that works. But can a 6-bedroom house work? The answer is yes. I just question your targeting and what you're talking about there. All right, John is saying likely there are a bunch of questions that need to be asked. Anyway, what he said. So if you are serving houses, okay, is it okay to pick up a few apartments if the opportunity is there since the demand is there? Got it. You're not serving houses. You're serving a person. You may be using a house to serve a person's needs. The question, again, is the same thing. Like I said a second ago, that's the answer. And then secondly, because your question also is implying something else, just because you never want to be in a position of chasing the dollar. Chasing the dollar makes you broke. Wrong answer. Don't do that. You build systems. The question is can the system that you have continue to serve the same demographic of person and successfully or not? If so, then yeah, consider the expansion. Great. If not, who cares that there's demand there? You aren't the best at serving that customer. That's who wins. There's demand for shirts. And yet Walmart, Target, and I would normally say Nordstrom, but they're now a question mark. Anyway, Walmart, Target, and are both selling shirts. But do they serve the same customer equally as well? The answer is no. But it's still shirts. You don't chase the dollars, my friend. Well, you can do it if you want to. I strongly encourage you not to. You need to build systems properly from the beginning. The tail cannot wag the dog for all intents and purposes. So hopefully you hear me through all of the stuff. Mr. Mike, what's up, dude? You owe me at least a couple of bars, man. It's been too long. You owe me I need a few bars. You know, things have changed. COVID is different. I want to know where Mike has been because he ain't all up in it like he's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying about. Where is he? Okay. How do you charge the damage fee waiver? Dave, I'm going to answer the question that I'm interpreting. I charge it up front as a part of the fees. I don't, if that, like on a debit card, I don't really know how to answer that question. That is what you are sensing. I think you have a different question, but how? Just a part of the rest of the fees. You buying? Yeah, that's a good question. So that's a good question. I have not answered that question yet. I don't. Anyway, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Jeremy, not my target market, but beach houses have been on my mind a lot lately. Yes, exactly. I'm out here in Southern California and I still don't want those beach houses. So somebody else, you can have them. And I understand why they would be. I get it. And I still don't want them. So I can leave that on the table and be comfortable and know that there's more than enough. This pie is huge and increasing because there is a lack of supply combined with increasing demand. Oh my gosh. It's like the perfect storm and to a degree. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that today has been informative for you. I hope you have learned at least one thing, and maybe we've earned a share. And if you're on YouTube, hopefully we've earned a subscribe. By all means, go ahead and hit that button too, because that we always like it when you share and like and subscribe, because it helps us to get in front of more entrepreneurs, which is our goal, is to give you the information, not for the sake of saying, hey, look at us, here's some information, but so that you can use it, period. And preferably use it to build an asset you learn to derive income from, because that is the skill set that is missing in today's economy. Retirement's a new concept. No one really knows how to do it because you haven't been taught. And we are an organization that teaches how to take what you have, regardless of how much you think it is, and turn it into more that you get to sustain and create generational change. Ladies and gentlemen, it is always, for me, fun to have these conversations with you. Hopefully you will join us again and bring a friend. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I'm going to go find some air conditioning because it just went out here. And I will look forward to talking to you guys soon. Until next time.